In business, success depends on the age of your ideas rather than your own age. This is Adnan Baranbo, and this is a new episode of AVIAPRENEURS podcast. My guest today is a young aviapreneur from the USA. He's a flight dispatcher, having his license from the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. He has more than 10 years of experience in the aviation industry. He started his career with World Fuel Service, where he worked in sales, operations, and finally in training and development. He later joined Flight Service Bureau and Ops Group as a product manager. And in November 2019, he established his first aviation startup, JumpSeat. Welcome, Mr. Ben Zavadil.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Thank you for joining me today. So Ben, changing a system that have been in place for as long as maybe the aviation industry has started or the airplane has been invented. The NOTAMs, the notice for air missions to air missions or the notice to airmen. You are on a mission to change that system. This is a very brave mission you have set for yourself and for JumpSeat. Why do you think this system needs to be changed?
Yeah, I think NOTAMs are a controversial issue. I think anybody you talk to in aviation has strong opinions about NOTAMs and the way they're published, the way you retrieve them, and sometimes just the way you consume them. JumpSeat really came about as a supplement to that, an enhancement to that, and really a way for the community to get more involved in NOTAMs. And so we believe that if we put the power of reporting what's going on in the aviation world in the hands of the operators, the pilots, the dispatchers, the people involved in the flights, better information can get to those pilots. I don't think we're ever going to replace NOTAMs. I think there's a place for it, but I do believe that there is a strong force behind the crowdsourcing of information. The aviation industry loves sharing information. They love consuming information. They love telling others what they saw. And to be able to capture that in a single place and not have the operators and pilots go to social medias or hope that they hear from another company or another pilot, I think we have a chance to really change how pilots change information in the industry.
So you think crowdsourcing is the best way of actually sharing information and informing pilots and dispatchers about the status of each airport they are operating to?
I think it's a valuable tool. You look at who is able to report to NOTAMs now, and it's a very limited population. NOTAMs aren't real time any longer. There's sometime a lag in when that information can get published. And with something like JumpSeat, you could have air traffic controllers inside, in the app and reporting stuff. You can have a fueler in the app. And I think it puts more hands on getting that information out there. There is the issue of reliability or the official source. But I think when you look at what pilots look for, they're always doing that work on their own to confirm that something's real. And I think the community itself will help vet that information when they see something that's obviously garbage or not true. I think we'll have tools in place to let the community make sure that's known. But I think in a system like NOTAMs that are run by governments, you're always going to have, even with fixes, I believe that we can, there's initiatives right now to fix the system, fix the information that goes in. But I think we'll always evolve to a place where everyone wants to kind of cover themselves and maybe over-report and report things that aren't relevant. And you'll end up with 15 pages of NOTAMs on your flight plan. And I think that will always be there. But to have a supplemental source where you can jump in and see what is actually going on out there or what somebody experienced yesterday or a week before, I think it's very valuable.
Very interesting. So why yourself? Why do you think it's you who's the best person to change or supplement that system?
I think I just had the vision for the app. Really, I think it's not me, it's the community. And I think between me and my co-founder, we had a vision for an app that would work and make it easy for this to come in, to get in, make it easy for, you get back into service after a flight, or you switch your phone back on, and I better jump in and do that. You're not waiting for someone to go and report it to another group when they get back to the hotel. Keep it on the front of their mind. And I think we just had the right idea. And aviation always seems to get left behind in technology. If you're not making flight planning software, if you're not creating charts or nav equipment, technology really isn't big in the aviation industry outside of those sectors. So I think if it's me, it's only because I decided to get in and do an app and onto the community's phone. The community is going to do the rest.
I highly appreciate your vision because it's improving the status of the aviation industry. So you started JumpSeat in November 2019. Fast forward till today. Where is JumpSeat now?
So we had a really long spin up with JumpSeat. We spent a long time planning, storyboarding, if you will, the app, and really breaking it down to the smallest thing it could be. What's the easiest way for pilots to get information in? Ton of features in our head that you don't see in the app today, and we had to scrap all those. We jumped into development, and we kind of got stuck in development a couple rounds of developers. And we ended up scrapping the app altogether. I would say late 2020, we decided to go with another developer who happened to join in on the team. So he's been with us and rebuilt the app from the ground up. So when we finally officially launched, we had a soft launch. We finally officially launched in December of last year, and it's taken off since then. So, we're very fresh into this, 3 or 4 months of actually being truly launched. And the response we've seen is great, working with a couple other aviation companies that are looking into integrating our data, bringing it in for their users. And then also broadcasting that message out to all their users as well. So, we're looking at seeing a lot of sectors slowly trickling into the app and kind of casting a wide net in the aviation industry.
So you mentioned that there are companies already looking into integrating with the information in the app. This means that the reaction of the aviation community, both as users and as contributors to the information shared on the app, is positive so far. Is it the case?
Yeah, very positive. Lot of feedback on what they see, and a lot of suggestions on what they'd like to see, and a lot of same thing we see, where they see the same potential for it as well. So it's been a very exciting few months for us, and yeah, the response has been very positive. Any negative feedback has come with, it's very good if you could do this, or these are the things I'd like to see that would get me in using this more often. So we're taking that feedback and running with it. But yeah, overall, couldn't be happier. I don't think.
This is the best way of feedback to improve, to evaluate and improve. But what about monetization? How are you planning to make money out of this app?
So we've got a few avenues that we're exploring right now. We're trying to keep it wide open. A lot of what I learned from former bosses was really to let the universe decide for you, for lack of a better word. We've seen a few paths that we could take, which is the exciting part, right? We can really let the app and the progress and how the community responds kind of decide how we make money. There's always the ad route, probably won't go that way. We could charge the user of the app. Again, probably won't go that way because this is valuable information for the industry. It breaks the mission that we have of trying to make sure everyone's informed. Another avenue is allowing trip planning companies to get us on their trip briefs. So if you want the JumpSeat information that's relevant to your trip to be posted on your flight plan, there's an avenue there. So we've seen a few avenues, and some are obvious, and then we've gone into some kind of more obscure options that we may not ever see come to fruition. But really the core is we want to make sure that information can come in easily and go out to the users easily, and not put our information behind a paywall. It's kind of our biggest desire is to not lock any information up, because it defeats the mission. So, if the universe will guide us to the way that we can achieve both revenue and getting information to everybody.
I wish you the best. I'm sure you will reach there. So what about financing? Did you self-finance it?
Yep. Self-financed, between myself and my co-founder, we self-financed, which was why we did all of the upfront work. Some of the stuff I've learned in the past is the more and more you want, the more expensive it's going to be, and the harder it is to define how you build the software. So we got very focused. Then again, we learned a lot, given that we had to actually scrap almost 2 versions of the code between both iOS and Android. We restarted on everything. So yeah, it was self-financed and learned a lot from that. And we're able to bring in a third partner that is a developer. So that helped us get the application out the door.
You're relying on a very innovative business model of the information age to build your app and your service, which is the crowdsourcing. Did you ever think of crowd financing the app and the business? Because in reality, you are doing a favor to the community, to the aviation community, and you are improving their life and the way they operate. So why don't they contribute back in helping you build the product and the business? So have you heard of a business which crowdfunded in the aviation industry?
I've not heard of one that was crowdfunded in aviation, and I'm not sure that it ever came across my mind that way. Part of it was, started as a kind of a passion project, a mission between the two of us. So it was like a pride thing, right? We want to be the two that get it out the door. But you've kind of tapped on kind of a potential revenue model that we spoke of, which is the value for value, where, hey, just give us what you think it's worth. And that's kind of the reverse take on it, right? They didn't crowdfund it, but the generating value for the value you receive is something we've talked about. I'd be curious to go back, 3 years and see what a crowdfund would do. We kind of thought the idea was a disruptor. So part of it was kind of keep it close to chest until we could get it published and on people's phones.
I believe people are gonna react positively and actually participate and crowdfund it, as long as you were successful in sending them the right message and in reaching them, because this app is really needed. We need people and pilots and dispatchers sharing their experiences. The NBAA is doing part of this in their airport database, but it needs to go on a wider scale and involve all other segments of the industry, like the commercial aviation industry, the air cargo, not only the business aviation. Because in my point of view, I appreciate that you're self-financing, but I don't think you're gonna be able to continue self-financing this forever. So you need to look into financing. And in order to do that, you need to be profitable in the near future. Are you looking into profitability? Do you know when do you think you will be profitable?
We've got a few timelines on that. We kind of have a 2-year runway that we're looking at, that we've looked at what it costs to run the app and get our marketing out and work in this way. And it's a 2-year runway we're looking at. I think we're a little more relaxed than most people might be, but it's because we know the core is getting information in, and the moment anybody gets a hint of money involved, I think it can kind of inhibit their desire to interact with the app. So like I say, that 2 years is our number. We may see that number shift to the left quite a bit, to be honest, and start moving. And we want to make sure that it stays organic and the mission prospers. So any funding that comes in will have to be pretty steadfast to stick with that mission.
I admire your passion, and I'm sure your passion will lead to a successful business.
Thanks.
So let's go back to the period prior to JumpSeat. You were working in Flight Service Bureau, and you oversaw the conversion of the operational service Flight Service Bureau were doing into productizing information in Ops Group. And this is frankly very valuable because many of the companies in the aviation industry are providing services that needs to be tailored and adapted to the needs of each customer. If you go and categorize the customers in multiple groups and then create a pre-designed product for each group, this will make the life easy for many businesses. Can you share with us your experience with that, being now a product manager specialized in this area?
Yeah, I think, the Flight Service Bureau to Ops Group transition was instrumental in JumpSeat, instrumental in, my career beyond Ops Group. I learned a lot about operations, but we were in a unique position where, I worked with some very talented and very creative people there. I was aviation brain only. And the people I worked with were very creative and had very creative ways of publishing information. And we found that resonated with our clients and the people we reached far more than the trip services we provided. We didn't provide bad trip services. They were great. We had great customer service. We were, we held the operator's hand through the whole thing. But when we started getting feedback emails of, we really liked what you did here, we really liked this thing that you published, it really, up at the top with Mark there, he really saw this as an opportunity to transform and publish information. So during our time doing operations, we did little mini briefs, really well graphic designed briefs about airports and regions, and people caught on. So that conversion was really interesting because at the same time we had the beginning of Ops Group that allowed us to directly communicate with our customers. Started up a Slack channel and able to chat with them. And if you had an idea at any time, you could post it in the channel and see if there was anybody that was interested. And I think that's a very unique opportunity in the industry to be able to just be honest and open with a group of people and say, what would help you? We built a lot of things that helped a lot of people, and they continue to do so now. I think the mission they have and what they publish is great, and how they bring together community is really impressive. But you're right. We had to really turn around and say, look, who was that core group? Who was the customer and what were they looking for? And we found, those international operators that didn't necessarily know where they were going next week or next month was that core audience, and being able to capture that and say, okay, hey, something new has happened. How do we publish that? So, all the NAT changes that have happened the last few years was a big deal. And we saw that that's where our customers were reacting, because it was something they could quickly and easily consume, far more quickly than the technical documents the authorities like to put out. So, it became very obvious that was the mission that we should go after there at Ops Group. And I think it was a pretty successful transition. And I don't think anybody at the company then or now would look back and want to jump into moving planes on the other side of the world and staying up all night managing those flights. So it was a really interesting time.
Yes, definitely. Actually, changing strategy and responding to the feedback from the market in changing the business model is very instrumental in keeping the company successful and growing. Definitely, this is the way it is. So after Ops Group, you took your product management experience and you moved to Charles Schwab as a senior product manager for their stock plan services. This is very interesting for me because you moved from aviation into a non-aviation company, but still your experience in what you were doing in the aviation business were useful and valuable to the company which is out of the aviation industry. This really opens the door wide for all these professionals working in the aviation industry, that their skills are actually transferable and they are employable in businesses outside of the aviation industry. What's your experience with that?
It's actually funny because before I left Ops Group, I had conversations with the others there about possibly setting up kind of a group or documentation for how we help people transition out of the aviation industry. I don't think it's an industry that many people want to leave, but when you do decide you want to look for outside opportunities, I think it is really hard to look and see what's available or what you'd be qualified for. And I've had experiences in my personal life with others in the aviation industry on how to transfer those skills. And for me, it was looking at everything high level. If you're a pilot, you're in charge of complex systems, expensive equipment. Everything's very proceduralized. If you run a simulation, you're training people. There's value in training people. Dispatchers, hyper attention to detail. You need to, if you mess up a call sign on your permit that you're requesting, you might have an airplane turnaround. Same thing with fuel. You miscalculate your fuel numbers or accidentally get fuel from the wrong provider. You're costing a company thousands of dollars. And that's another thing too for resumes, that dollar sign of how much you saved. All that stuff does transfer. I don't think, I'm not going to be a pilot and become an engineer next week, but I think for a lot of industries, the aviation industry holds a lot of qualities that are really desirable. And I don't think there's any better way to demonstrate this than, hey, I flew a plane for X amount of years and this was my record. I was a captain on a plane. But beyond running these complex systems and following all these procedures, I had to do that with people's lives in my hand. And I've used the example a lot of times with, my current job and chatting about prioritization, for example, is one of them. How do you handle something that you're working on versus a request from your boss or a request from your most important client? And I say, well, I had to juggle phone calls, and, it's pretty easy to prioritize when someone says, hey, I've got 20 passengers stuck at customs, versus another issue that isn't quite as intense. Like, hey, is our food ready for tomorrow's airplane? Right. So, there's all those things that go into the skills that an employer outside the industry looks for. And I think they're highly transferable. It's just about being able to communicate that to other people. And I think, the aviation industry is very complex and can lock a lot of people out. Mindset wise, right? You just think, oh, you're flying a plane. But I think being able to communicate really what you're doing on a day-to-day basis at that high level, it's, there's a lot of industries that are very wide open to pilots, dispatchers, and that probably not turning around and being a doctor or an engineer, like I say, but anything, if you see a job posting online, I'm willing to bet you have 90% of the skills that they're looking for.
I love this. I really admire this perspective and this positive feeling and opportunity you open to all these aviation professionals all over the world. Your experience is very helpful in this regard. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and I'm happy to chat with people directly too on this, because it was kind of a eye-opening thing to get out of the aviation industry, but it's never left me. And it's, I never, once I left, it was almost, how do I get back? But it was, from a stress perspective and a future management perspective, to know that I'm not locked into one sector, kind of makes you feel back at home and makes you a little bit more comfortable sitting in one industry.
Yeah, it's relaxing always to have plan B. And you didn't leave, actually. Mm-hmm. You just had an employment, but at the same time, you are creating and innovating, helping make the aviation industry a better industry. So thank you very much for all the experience shared. Before we finish, I have a question about what recommendations, what lessons, what advice do you give all the aviapreneurs listening to us and watching us today? These lessons you wish you have learned 10 years ago when you started, this lesson that will really help them launching successful aviation products, projects, and the startups.
I think the biggest one really is that the industry is far more creative than it seems. I think we get so bogged down into flight plans and fuel and our rigid quote numbers, and this is what it costs, and this is the flight time, and I need to, get even down to, we send movement messages in there at 21:36, we get that specific. There's a lot of room for creativity, and there's a lot of room for disruption, and using that creativity to think of a different way, a better way to do things, and just having that drive to get it done. I think we self-funded JumpSeat. It's not as expensive as you think it is to get some of this stuff running. There's a lot of really great technology platforms that can help you get this stuff off the ground. And if you're creative and you see a window for some change, run with it. Because 10 years ago, I wanted to be a dispatcher, and I thought I was going to work for a small regional airline, and then work up to a medium-sized US airline, and then up to a big US airline, and then maybe a cargo operator at the end of all that. And I thought that was the only career path I was going to have 10 years ago. And I'm very wrong, and I'm glad I'm very wrong. And a lot of that is because it's a unique industry, and more people should take advantage of how unique it is and how rigid it is as well, because it's ripe for change, it's ripe for disruption, and it's ripe for excitement.
Amazing. I love this. Very interesting. Thank you, Ben. I appreciate your time. Thank you for everything and for the insights. I'm sure all the listeners and the viewers will really benefit from this advice. I wish you the best in JumpSeat and in all the projects you're working on.
I appreciate it. And thank you for your time. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you for all the listeners and the viewers of AVIAPRENEURS podcast. I'm sure you found this experience of Ben and JumpSeat is very interesting. Follow JumpSeat. It's a very interesting app. And I look forward to seeing you next week with a new AVIAPRENEUR, new experience, and a new challenge and opportunity. Have a great day. See you next week.